Hello my dear students, welcome to class 12 biology. Today we're going to start with one of the simple and interesting chapter from the unit ecology. This is the first chapter under ecology. The name of the chapter is Organisms and Population. This chapter carries total 6 marks as per the weightage given by the PU board and also important for competitive exams. So let's get started. This chapter mainly focuses on organisms and its interaction with the physical environment. The study of interaction between living and non-living components in ecosystem is called ecology. The world where we are living is having very diverse organisms, and this contains very simple to complex living organisms. These living organisms are made up of small microparticles which combine to form cell. And the group of cell forms tissue. A group of tissue forms organ, and group of organs forms organ system. Finally, the group of organ system forms organisms. When these organisms live together forming a group, that is called population, and such populations together forms community. These communities together form ecosystem, and such ecosystem finally forms a big biosphere. Types of organisms and number of organisms are not same everywhere on this biosphere. It varies. Species distribution is based on the type of environment that they are living. What might be the reason for different environmental condition on this biosphere? The amount or the intensity of temperature that falls and amount of rainfall each region receives is responsible for different biomes on the earth. We have 7 major biomes I have listed here. You can see that all these biomes are having their own organisms which has capability to adapt themselves to the place where they are living. Organisms, those are living in the particular place, they will have interaction with the environment, and to survive and reproduce in the area where they are living, these organisms will interact with the environment. This interaction of the organism with the physical environment forms the ecosystem. Some of the abiotic factors which are responsible for the survival of the organism are temperature, water, light, and soil. Biotic factors that are responsible for the survival are pathogens, parasites, predators, and competitors.
So let us understand first what is population. In nature, individuals will not live isolated. Always they will live in group, and this group of individual is called population. So we can define population as it is a group of individuals living in a particular geographical area. This population has certain attributes that an individual organism doesn't have, such as individuals may have births and deaths, but population has birth rates and death rates. When we consider a single organism, the organisms can take birth or it can die, that is death and birth of the individual. But when we are talking about the population, the complete population, we cannot say as birth and death. It is birth rates and death rates. This population will be consisting of all type of age groups. It may be the pre-reproductive stage or reproductive stage or post-reproductive age groups. So all type of age groups of animals or the individuals we can see in this population. Some of the attributes of the population are birth and death rate, sex ratio, age distribution, and population density. What are these population attributes? Let us see one by one. So first one, the first population attribute is birth and the death rate. The birth and death rate is referred as per capita birth or death respectively, which has increased and decreased with respect to members of the population. The individuals may take birth in a population, and that gives the complete birth rate of the population. And even the individuals are dying in the population, and that will give the death rate of the population. You can see in this picture, if the birth rate is more than the death rate, then the population is referred as it is increasing. Okay, increasing population will be having always birth rate higher than the death rate. If the population is having both equally, the birth rate and the death rate, that means the number of individuals those who are taking birth and the number of individuals dying in the particular population are equal, then it is called steady population. And we can call the population as decreasing population if the birth rate is lesser than the death rate, more number of death taking place than the number of individual taking birth. In such cases, the population will decrease. Birth rate and death rate can be calculated by using simple formula, that is total number of birth, or it may be the death, divided by total population. So whatever the number of individuals staying in that population, if you are dividing that by the total number of birth, if you are calculating birth rate, then it should be the total number of birth which is taking place at particular time. And if you're calculating the death rate, then it should be the total number of death at a given time divided by the total population. For example, suppose in the population there are 100 individuals and 20 more were added, then the population rate will be 20 divided by 100. So what will be the birth rate? It will be 0.2. In the same way, suppose if you want to calculate the death rate, for example, in a population if there were 50 individuals and 5 individuals died due to some reason, then the death rate will be 5 divided by 50, that is zero point 0.1. So this is how we can calculate the birth rate and the death rate in a population. So let us see next about sex ratio. Sex ratio is another attribute of population. When we are considering the population, the population will be having both male and the female. We cannot separate them into the male separate group and female separate group. When we are taking the sex ratio only, then the population will be divided into male and the female. Otherwise, the population will be having both male and female, but we will not segregate for any of the other population attributes. Here we can see the sex ratio of female are having only 37% and the male is 63%. So this is in a population. When we consider in this example, the female are less than the number of male. So this is how we can give the percentage wise the population sex ratio. Next is about age distribution. As I told you earlier, when we consider a population, this population will be having all sort of age group individuals. It may be the reproductive stage or pre-reproductive or post-reproductive. All type of individual will be present in the population. So when we plot a graph, the resulting structure will be pyramid shape. We will get usually the pyramid shape. The shape of the pyramids reflects the shape of the growth status of population. It may be expanding pyramid, or it may be the stable pyramid, or it may be the declining pyramid. So let me explain how is this possible. Here you can see in the example, the yellow color represents pre-reproductive stage, blue color represents reproductive stage individuals, and the green color represents post-reproductive stage individuals. So these are the individuals, those are pre-reproductive, and these are the individuals, those are at reproductive stage, and these are the individuals, those who are old. So post-reproductive, old age, here the younger ones and here the adults, and these are the old age individuals. If the population is having more younger individuals than the old age individuals, then the pyramid is increasing or expanding pyramid. Okay, so this we can see the whatever the population is there, this is expanding. Next, when we consider the next pyramid, which is stable, here in this we can see the number of individuals, those are pre-reproductive stage. The individuals which are at the pre-reproductive stage and the reproductive stage, they are almost same. Okay, number of individuals are same and the old age individuals are less. So in such cases, it is stable. It means the number of individuals which are there, the pre-reproductive and reproductive, they're almost same compared to the old age individuals. So this type of population we can consider as stable population. Coming to the next one, in this example, we can see the younger ones are less compared to the reproductive stage individuals, and old age individuals also almost, it's not too less, it is almost equal to the reproductive individuals. So when it is in such condition, we can say that the population is decreasing because the number of younger ones are less. So that means the population is declining. This is how we can tell whether the country population is expanding or it is stable or declining. The developing countries will be having usually expanding pyramid, and the developed countries will be having stable pyramid, and undeveloped or underdeveloped countries will be having declining pyramid. Next population attribute is the population density. So let's see what is this population density. The number of individuals present in a population gives us the size of the population. Size of the population is nothing but the population density. So this can be either by calculating the number of individuals or by calculating the biomass of the individuals, or it may be the relative density. So let's see how we can calculate the density of population. Suppose if we take the example of pond ecosystem, there we can see many of the organisms living together. Many populations will be there. So depending on that, by calculating the number of individual, we can tell that the population of that particular species, whether it is more or less. By calculating the number of frogs, we can calculate whether the density of the population of frog is more or less. Like that, we can count the number of fishes, snails, tadpoles, flies, etc. And we can tell whether the density of the population of that individual species is more or less. This is one way of calculating the population density. Suppose by calculating the number of individuals, we are not getting the appropriate population density, then we have to calculate the biomass of that particular population. For example, in this picture, you can see that the tree is only one. So if we consider one as number, and here we can see the other shrubs are more compared to the tree. So when we calculate the number of the other species which are smaller, the number will be definitely, it will be more compared to the tree. In such case, we cannot say that the shrubs are having more population density than the tree, because definitely the tree is bigger in size and it is having more biomass. In such cases, we need to consider biomass instead of the number. So the number of biomass, whatever the population of the tree is there, that is more. The biomass of the tree is more than the biomass of the smaller shrubs which are under the tree. So in such cases, we need to calculate the biomass. Next, coming to the next way of calculating the population density. Some of the cases, it will be very difficult to count the number, even the biomass of the species. For example, if you consider the river or lake, if you want to count the number of fishes there, then it will be too much time taking and it is highly impossible to count the individuals. That is why in such cases we will go for another method of calculating the population density, that is relative density. In this case, what we will do, instead of counting the number of individuals, we will just take the relative density of that. How? For example, if we are taking the example of fishes, how many fishes will be trapped at one trap at particular time, that gives us the relative density of that particular individual. So these are the some of the ways of calculating the population density, either by number or biomass or by relative density. Next, let us see the population dynamics. As you know very well, the population is not stable. It is dynamic. It keeps on changing. Whatever the population is there, the density of the population is there, that keeps on changing. It may increase or it may decrease. The number of individuals may increase in a population or they may decrease in the population. So this population growth keeps changing with the time depending on the four factors. Like it may be the food availability, it may be the weather condition, or it may be the predator pressure, or it may be due to the competition among the individuals. So all these factors will help the population to grow, either to increase or to decrease. This population growth are of four types: natality, mortality, immigration and emigration. So what is natality? Natality is nothing but the birth rate, the number of individuals those are taking birth in the population, that is called natality. Mortality is death rate, number of individuals dying in a particular population, that gives the mortality. Immigration is nothing but the individuals those who are added to the population, and emigration is the individuals those are leaving the population. Based on these factors we can tell whether the population is increasing or decreasing. So let us see how it will change based on these factors. The natality and immigration contributes to increase in size and the density of the population. Obviously, if the number of individuals are added to the already present group or the population, then obviously the number of individuals will increase, right? So now when the number of individuals are increasing, that means the population is increasing. The same way, immigration is nothing but when any new individual is coming and joining to the already present population, that is called immigration. These are coming and joining to the population which is already present. So if the individuals are entering to the population, that will also increase the number of individuals in the particular population. That also increases the population size. So these two factors, natality and immigration, will increase the size of the population, whereas mortality and emigration will decrease it. How it will decrease? Mortality is nothing but death. If the organism death is happening in the particular population, the number of individual will definitely it will reduce. So the size of the population will also decrease. Even emigration will result in decrease in the size of the population. How? If the individuals are living in a population and if they are going out of the population due to some reason, then the number of individuals which were there in the population, that will definitely it will decrease. Since they are going out of the population, some of the individuals are going out of the population, the number will be decreased. So size of the population will decrease. So we can write the equation of the population growth as Nt is equal to N naught plus B plus I minus D plus E, where Nt is the population density at time, N naught is the population in the beginning, B is the birth rate, I is the immigration, D is death rate and E is emigration. When we add birth rate and immigration, and also death and emigration, when we subtract that by adding the population in the beginning, we will get the population density. So this is how we can calculate the population density of any particular species. This population growth exhibits two patterns, that is one is exponential growth, another one is logistic growth. What are this exponential and logistic growth? Exponential growth is nothing but when the availability of food and space is sufficient amount, then the individual will keep on increasing in number, and that is called exponential growth. When there is no limit of food and the place available for the living of the organism, then definitely the number of individual will increase in such habitat and the population will grow. It will keep on increasing. Definitely, all the organisms, those are living on Earth, all of them have their full capacity to grow enormously without any difficulty. Suppose if I take the example of Iconia, since there was availability of food and the space for its growth, it started continuously growing. A number of Iconia increased within few days. Why? Because there was availability of food and space for them. So in such cases, when we plot the graph for the population growth, we can get complete increase of the growth pattern and we can calculate the size of the population. If the population size is represented as n and the birth rate is represented as b and death rate as d at a given time, then it will be then increase and decrease in n during unit period time t will be dn divided by dt is equal to b minus d into n. When we consider this b minus d as r, then dn divided by dt is equal to rn. This r is nothing but intrinsic rate of natural increase. So how it can increase, that we can calculate using the formula. So this is very important parameter for measuring the impact of biotic and abiotic components on population growth. Here you can see the graph of exponential growth. It will start with the lag phase and it keeps on increasing, and this is called exponential growth phase. When we plot a graph of number of organisms in a given time, then if the food availability and the space is unlimited, we will get exponential growth curve like this. It is J-shaped curve which we can get when we plot in the graph. With the basic knowledge of calculus, we can calculate the integral form of exponential growth like this. Nt is equal to n naught e to the power rt, where n is the population at a time t and n naught is initial size of the population, r is the relative rate of growth and t is the time. So this is how by the calculus method we can calculate the exponential growth. Next is logistic growth. If there is competition for food and space among the individuals, then it will be the logistic way of growth what we can see in the population. Only the fittest organisms can survive and they can reproduce. The other organisms they will die due to the insufficient amount of food and the space which is available. So this type of growth will be having the graph like this. Initially it will show the population will keep increasing for certain period and then later it will be lag phase. It will stop increasing and it will be the lag phase. This we can get only for the logistic growth of population. This type of population growth is called Wohlert-Pearl logistic growth. This name was given by the two scientists named Wohlert and Pearl. These are the two scientists those who gave this logistic growth curve. So it is also called Wohlert-Pearl logistic growth. In nature, Earth is having the capacity to carry the individuals when there is sufficient amount of resources are available for their survival. When the resources are limited or when it decreases, then definitely the organisms will die. So based on this carrying capacity, that is K, we can get the formula like this: dN divided by dt is equal to Rn in bracket K minus n divided by K. So where n is population density at time t, R is intrinsic rate of natural increase and K is carrying capacity. So this is how we can calculate the logistic growth of the population. Since the resources for the growth for population are finite or it is limited, the logistic growth model is considered more realistic one. Compared to the exponential growth, this logistic growth is giving us the more realistic idea of limiting factor. Even in nature, the resources are not unlimited. It is only the limited amount of resource which are available. That is why the nature is having its own way of controlling the population. Even in some of the countries, you might have seen, since it is the number of people are increasing, The government is making some rules to control the population so that it can restore its natural resources which are available for the survival of the individuals. So by studying all these, we can say that population is dynamics. Population can increase, or the growth of the population can increase only if there is availability of food and place for the individuals. On this earth, no individual can live alone. All the species, whether it may be the plant variety or the animal variety, they have to live in a community. They will interact with each other to survive. We cannot imagine any of the individual organism living alone. All the organisms are interdependent for the food. Even the plants which prepare their own food, even they need the support of other microorganisms and the insects for pollination purpose. Like this, on this earth, all the individuals are interacting with each other for one or the other reason. Such interaction is called population interaction. When the two organisms are interacting with each other, it may be benefit for both of them, or it may not be benefit for both of them, or it may be for one of the organism might be getting the benefit, the other might not be getting the benefit, and sometimes both might not be getting the benefit. So based on all these types, we can categorize the organisms into the following types: mutualism, commensalism, neutralism, amensalism, predation, parasitism, and competition. If both the species get the benefit from the interaction, such interaction is called mutualism. Usually we will denote the symbol plus for the benefit. If the organism is getting the benefit, then we can denote with the symbol plus. If the organism getting affected, then we can denote with the symbol minus. If nothing is happening to the organism, it means if it is unaffected, then we can denote it with the zero symbol. So here plus plus indicates that both the organisms are getting the benefit. In amensalism, one species gets the benefit and one will be affected. So here is a symbol, one is getting the benefit and the other one is unaffected. So it is 0. In neutralism, as the name itself says, neutral, it means the population interaction, whatever is there between the organism, it will not affect the organism in any way. It means it is neutral. In amensalism, one species is unaffected and one is disadvantaged. That is why the symbol 0 here, it means it is unaffected, the other one is disadvantaged. In predation and parasitism, in both the cases, the one will be benefited and the other one will be disadvantaged. In competition, both the species will be affected. So we can denote it as minus and minus. It means both the organisms are getting affected by the interaction. So this is how we can show in a simpler way the interaction of organism. So let us understand each one in detail. Just imagine if the plants are just growing and there are no organisms to eat that, then what would happen? We can't even imagine. The plant population will keep on increasing and we can't even imagine what might happen after that. So it is necessary to control the whatever the organisms are there on the earth. One has to feed the others. Then only the whatever the population is there that will come under control. So let's see the first one, that is predation. In this type of population interaction, one species uses the other as a food resource. So here one of the example you can see here, this is a wild cat which is eating the rabbit. Always in a community, one organism will feed on the other organism as a food. Even the plants will be eaten by the organism and they are the predators. The organisms which feed on the plants, they are predators for the plants. It means the herbivores are the predators for the plants and the organisms which are eaten by the predators, they are called prey. So it is a prey and predator interaction. The one is here, you can see the cat, the wild cat is a predator and the rabbit is a prey for it. Predator plays an important role in controlling prey population number in some system. If there are no predators, if the organisms are not eating the other organism, then the prey population will increase and there will be imbalance in the nature. So to balance the number of organisms on the earth, it is necessary to eat one another as a food. Other than controlling the prey population, even predation also helps in transferring the energy from one trophic level to another trophic level. We have learnt already how the energy will pass from one trophic level to another trophic level. The ultimate source of energy is sun. When it is giving the energy to the plants, the energy will come to the plants and the plant will be eaten by the herbivores and the energy will pass to the herbivores. So like that the chain of the energy goes on. If there are no predators and prey, then it will be difficult to transfer the energy. So this predation is helping in the transferring of energy also. So this predation is important for two reasons. One is to transfer the energy and another one is to control the prey population. This predation can control the prey population, but sometimes the exotic species, when it is introduced to new area, because there are no predators in that area, it might grow extensively without any control. In such cases, the vast increase in the organism will lead to some of the problems and also ecological imbalance. In such cases, it is very necessary to control the organism's growth to bring balance in the nature. Here is an example of cactus plant which was introduced in Australia in the year 1920s. Since there was availability of food, the plant started growing massively within a short period of time and covered most of the area in Australia. Then later, because of this problem, they introduced one of the worm to kill these plants. These biological control worms, they go inside the plant and they'll feed the plant and ultimately it leads to death of the plant. When there is interaction between prey and predator, always the prey will be under threat. They have to escape from the predator somehow to survive. So in such cases, they have some of the defensive mechanism to escape from the predators. Here is one example. The monarch butterfly is very distressful to its prey bird. And also there is another way of escaping from the predator, that is camouflaging themselves. Some of the frogs and other reptiles, they can camouflage. That is cryptic coloration. It means whatever the background is there, the organism will turn to the same color so that it cannot be seen by the predator. So this is also one of the mechanism to escape from the predator. But also some of the organisms will produce poisonous chemicals inside their body just to escape from the predators. If the predators eats them, they will die. Not only the animals, even the plants are the prey for some of the predators like herbivores. About 25% of the insects also feed on these plants. So all are like phytophagous. Phytophagous means one which feeds on the plants. All these insects will feed on the plant and that is a threat for again the plant. So plants are getting affected more than the animals because they cannot move and they cannot escape from the predators. They are most likely to get affected by the predators. But still some of the plants have evolved some of the morphological and chemical defense mechanism, like they might it may be the thorns or the spines on the plant which will avoid the predators which feed on them. This is one of the common plant which all of you have seen, that is calotrophes. Have you seen any grazing animal, cattle or goat, any of the grazing animal coming and feeding this plant? No. No cattle will come and eat this plant because they have some of the poisonous glycoside that will affect the cardiac system of the animal. This is one of the defensive mechanism of this calotrophes plant. Likewise, even the nicotine, caffeine, quinine, all this opium, all these things, whatever the chemical is produced by the plant which we are extracting as a drug, all these are the some of the chemicals which are produced by the plant to protect themselves against herbivores. So this is how the interaction of predators and prey is there on earth. Next, competition. Competition is an interaction among the individuals of same species or between individuals of different species. When you hear the word competition, what comes to your mind? The fight between two individuals. It may be for a positive ending or it may be the negative ending, whatever. The competition means two organisms will be struggling for the same cause or the same reason. That is called competition. Here also, the competition between the two organisms for the same food, when it happens, that is called competition interaction. It may be between the same species or it may be between the different species. Here is an example of same species, and here you can see the different species like fish and flamingo, both are competing for the same food. If the competition is between the same species, it is called intraspecific competition. If it is between the two different species, it is called interspecific competition. Usually the competition between the individuals of the same species is for the same resource of food that are limited. If the food is limited, then the competition will arise. If the food is unlimited, then definitely they will not compete with each other, they will not fight with each other. But when the food resource is limited, then the competition will start. But in some cases, even though resources are not limited, they might compete with each other. Maybe because of the feeding efficiency of one species is greater than the other. If the feeding efficiency of one organism is greater, then definitely that organism will get the food easily than the other one which is little weak. For example, having tortoise in Galapagos Island, it became extinct within a decade after goats were introduced into the island. Before the introduction of these goats in the island, these tortoises were living happily with the sufficient food, whatever is available. But after the introduction of the goat started eating the food which is available for the tortoise. So what happened? These tortoises became extinct. The reason for this is the goats are having the greater efficiency for browsing than the tortoise. Here is one more example for interspecific competition for the same resource of food. Example is flamingo and fish, which is competing for the same food, that is zooplanktons. Both need zooplankton as a food. So both will compete for the zooplanktons, and whichever is efficient that can survive, and the other one will be facing the scarcity of food. So such competition which is leading to the end of one of the organism's life, that is called competitive release. A species whose distribution is restricted to a small geographical area because of the presence of a competitively superior species is called competitive release. It means if there is an organism which is superior to the other one, then the inferior one will definitely get affected by the superior organism. The superior organism will eat all the resources which is available, and because of the scarcity of food or unavailability of the food for the inferior organism, they will come to extinct and finally they will die. But these species which are coming to the extinct, if suppose in that particular geographical area, if the superior organisms are removed from that area, then the other organisms can again survive. So experimentally, if it can be removed, then the other organism can survive. This is called competitive release. One of the scientists called Gauss, he introduced a principle which states that two closely related species competing for the same resources cannot exist together, and the competitively inferior will be eliminated by superior. This is called Gauss competitive exclusion principle. According to this, whichever the superior organism is there, that will eliminate the inferior one. This law is applicable only when the resources are limited. If the resources are not limited, then we cannot accept that the organisms will come to extinct when there are superior organisms are living with that. Since it is difficult to accept the Gauss principle, recent studies go with the coexistence rather than the competitive exclusion. This is more appropriate to accept that the species, those who are facing the competition among themselves, they will evolve some mechanisms to coexist rather than exclusion. If they are facing the difficulty, then what they will do, they will adopt or they will evolve some of the mechanism which will facilitate them to coexist with each other. So such mechanisms are happening in the nature which is facilitating the organisms to coexist. For example, species might choose different feeding habit than competing for the same food. One might start feeding the worms, one other one might start feeding the grains. Like that they might evolve some of the changes among themselves so that they can coexist with each other. MacArthur showed five closely related species of warbler coexisting on the same tree by behavioral differences in their foraging activities. Even though all the five different species of warbler were living on the same tree, all five are not fighting for the same food. They had different feeding habit to live together or to coexist with each other. So this is most appropriate and acceptable one than considering that the organisms will come to end when there is no availability of food. Next interaction is parasitism. Parasitism is an interspecific interaction where one species depend on the other for food and shelter. The one which is taking the shelter and the food from the other one by harming, that is called parasite, and the organism which is giving the shelter and the food for the other one, that is called host. If I take the example of leech here, leech is feeding the blood of the human beings. So human being is a host here and the leech is a parasite. Parasites are host specific and evolve with host. It means if the parasites has to live with the host, then they have to evolve as the host evolves. For example, if the organisms are trying to avoid these parasites and they adopt some mechanism to avoid the parasites, then whatever the adaptation or changes which was taken place in the host body, to adjust to that, even the parasite has to develop from or evolve some of the mechanism. Otherwise, what will happen? The parasites will die. That cannot happen. The parasites has to live inside the host. So these parasites also will evolve along with the host. The parasites, whatever we can see, they will be having some of the beautiful adaptation so that it can survive within the host or outside the host. Like parasites tend to co-evolve. As I told you earlier, they will evolve with the host. So this is also one of the adaptation of the parasite. It may lose the sense organs. There is no requirement of sense organ for these parasites. As it is not required, they might lose the sense organ. Next, presence of suckers and hooks. Definitely they need suckers and hooks so that it can go and fix to the host body and it can take the food from the host. So the development of suckers and hooks is one of the adaptation of the parasite. Loss of digestive system. Since the ready-made food it is getting, there is no need of digestion process. That is why the parasites will not be having the digestive system. High reproductive capacity. Since they have to survive within the host body, they will be having high reproductive capacity so that within a short time they can produce more number of organisms and it can keep growing and it can survive inside the host body. Some of the parasites they have complex life cycle and generally they have one or two intermediate hosts. This is also one of the adaptation of the parasites. Usually the life cycle of the parasites will be little bit complicated and they will be minimum they will be having one or two intermediate host. For example, the liver fluke which lives inside the human body that has two intermediate hosts, that is one is snail and the one is fish. After passing these two, snail and the fish, then ultimately it comes to the human body and there it stays and it will live inside the human body. Like that, even malarial parasite also has intermediate host of mosquito. Inside the mosquito also it will develop, and when it comes to human body it will multiply. So these are some of the mechanism which the parasites are adopting to survive inside or outside the living organism. We can categorize the parasites into two types based on where it lives. If the parasites are living outside the host body, then they are called ectoparasites. Ecto means outside. If the organism or the parasites are living inside the body of the organism, then it is called endoparasites. Here you can see some more example for parasites. You can see the copepods which are living on the marine fish, and also cuscuta which is parasite on the tree. Next is commensalism. It is the interspecific interaction in which one species benefits and the other is neither harmed nor be benefited. It means one of the organism is getting the benefit but the other one neither is getting the benefit nor it is harmed. Example for commensalism are, you might have observed this, the egrets which are around the cattle. Why they will come and they will be on the inner around the cattle? Because the cattle will be having some of the insects. When it is traveling from one place to another place, the insects will stick onto their body, and these birds will come and it will eat the insects. So like this, the birds are getting the insects from the body of the cattle, but this cattle is neither harmed nor been benefited. One more example is sea anemone and the clownfish. Here you can see the sea anemone and this is a clownfish. This clownfish will live inside the sea anemone tentacles. It will hide inside the tentacles of sea anemone so that it gets the protection from the predators. When the predator comes, because of the stinging tentacles of the sea anemone, the predators cannot eat this fish. So the fish is getting the protection from the sea anemone. The sea anemone is neither benefited nor even harmed. Another example for the commensalism is orchids which are growing on the tree. These orchids are growing on the tree and the tree is neither benefited nor been harmed. Two more examples for commensalism is barnacles growing on the whale and sucker on the shark. In all these examples, the organism which are getting the benefit, they are not harming the host. So this is called commensalism. Next is mutualism. Mutualism is interaction in which both the species interact and they both will be getting the benefit. If both organisms are getting the benefit, then that is called mutualism. Example for mutualism are fig and wasp. Fig and wasp, they cannot live individually. Both are dependent on each other. The fig fruit, whatever is there, the pollination of this fruit can happen only with the help of this wasp. And the wasp, for its larval growth, they need the fruit. Wasp will enter inside the fruit and they will lay egg inside the fruit. These eggs will develop with the help of the seeds which are present inside the fruit. And also for the development of the larva, these fruits will be used. Even the fig is dependent on this wasp. No other insect can pollinate this fig fruit. Only the wasp can pollinate. So both are getting the benefit of each other. Next example is combination of algae and fungi to form lichen. This is a well-known example for all of us. Algae and fungi will live together and they will form lichen. The alga will get the shelter from the fungi and fungi will get the food from the alga. So like this, by mutual understanding, they will be living together in the form of lichen. Another example for the mutualism is plant and mycorrhiza. In this case, the mycorrhiza fungi, whichever is growing in the root of the plant, they will be supplying the nitrogen to the plant and the plant will be giving the shelter to the mycorrhiza. So like this, the both plant and the mycorrhiza will be getting the benefit from each other. The next one is orphis and the bee. This is one of the plant, orchid plant, orphis. The combination of these two organisms is very interesting one. Usually for the pollination purpose, the plants need insects. So to attract the insects, they will be having the beautiful flowers so that the insects get attracted by them. Like that, even the orchis plant will be having the mechanism of attracting the bee by producing the structure of female bee. This part of the plant looks like female bee. So the male bee will get cheated by the flower and it will think that this is a female bee and it will come for the copulation purpose. So pseudo copulation will happen between the plant and the male bee. When the pseudo copulation is happening, that time the pollen grains will stuck to the bees and then it will be pollinated. What is the benefit for the bee? The bee got the nectar from the flower and the flower was pollinated by the bee. So like this, the organisms, when it is mutually benefited, it is called mutualism. So these are all the interaction, different type of interaction which is taking place in the nature. Mensalism, commensalism, mutualism, parasitism, predation and competition.